How to automate your work with AI. Most founders are stuck automating the wrong things. They're automating email management and data entry, while the real bottlenecks are things like scope creep and staffing. Automating without fixing the bottlenecks just gives you faster chaos. My name's Scott Bartnick. I'm a 2x Inc. 5,000 CEO, and I've helped implement systems into thousands of businesses. I'm going to show you the exact framework I use to automate your work with AI, to find what's costing you money, what's taking your time, and then how to set it so it runs without you. Step one of automating your work with AI is really focused on where the constraint is. We want to determine where your time's going and what will actually move the needle for you, your work, and your business. Now, if you don't know exactly where your constraint is, the quickest way to find it is to do a time study. Just determine where you're spending your time. I do have a template down below, but it's really as simple as every day writing down what you did that day and about how much time it did. So if you're stuck doing a whole bunch of billing, data entry, client request, questions from your team, management, wherever you're spending your time, you want to document that and look at how do we solve this constraint. In step two, we want to determine if this is actually a constraint in your business or your work. And to do that, we want to understand if it is actually going to increase revenue, increase lifetime value of a client or product, if it's going to recapture time, or if it's going to reduce risk in the business. If the answer isn't yes to at least one of these, you don't have a true constraint. Now, another question I like to ask myself is it worth the time to implement? Sometimes things take 15, 20 minutes and the solution would be very expensive or very time consuming. And so that's not also the right constraint to go after. Now, in step three, once we've determined what we actually want to solve, what that constraint is, what the problem is in our business, we really need to understand what a simple system is. Now, a simple system is as easy as we have an input or order, then we need to do the actual work, we need to deliver the work somehow, and then what most founders miss is we actually need to get feedback. And this is what I see a lot in AI implementation is there's no feedback. So what we do is we have a system that we've built that consistently produces the wrong solution. So it doesn't learn as you go, it doesn't get smarter. And that's why more agentic tools now are becoming so popular, is because they actually get educated as you go, and they'll actually get better and better by looking at data. And I'll show you exactly how to implement that soon. Now, in step four, once we figured out what our constraint is, we truly understand what that looks like, we want to start documenting current state. What are you actually doing? What are those steps? Typically what I do is I call this a standard operating procedure. So the easiest way for me to do that is I do a quick video like this. I use Loom as the tool, and then I will have it transcribe it step by step into what's actually going on. Now, you want to think of this SOP as if I was to hire someone off the street, would they be able to do this specific task or role? You want to put in your logic, your thought process, definitions, access to the tools that are needed, every detail. And this step does take a little bit of time, but if you master understanding how to build the structure of the SOP for your specific process and include things like goals, why we're doing it, what the KPIs are, what the actual metrics are to be successful in this role, you'll be able to implement AI a lot easier, or obviously staffing as well. Now, I do have a free template down below and you can grab that, but it just maps out what a good SOP looks like. And then I have another version specifically designed for SOPs for AI agents. Now, I'm moving through this part kind of fast because I want to get into actually showing you some of the tools. But the thing is, the tools don't matter as much because technology is moving so quickly. What was relevant last year is no longer relevant this year. And the ease to actually implement these AI agents becomes easier and easier. So because if you can understand the systems, you can actually document it and then just have a conversation with AI to actually get the solution and the workflow that you need. Now, things that I've implemented in my business for AI solutions would be basically BDR setters. So we use email marketing, we send emails, and we have an AI process that enriches the emails and sends them. But then when responses come back, we actually use AI to draft replies, and then it gets smarter and smarter. So we actually still use humans in the loop, and they are part of our feedback circle because we're very high ticket. And so they'll see the response, they'll hit approve or deny, they'll make edits, and then that gets put into the knowledge base. So the more they do that, the better their responses are. Our system is actually learning. Now, one of the constraints my business also had was they would do sales calls, but then the proposals were taking over an hour. So we built out an AI proposal generator, which basically same system. We have a feedback loop where it's a human in the loop. They basically take the transcription, it goes into this AI generator, it generates the proposal, and then our team manually reviews it, and then they hit send. When they hit send, it'll send the email, it'll send the proposal, but then that's also saved in a system. So that way it learns and gets better every single time. Now, there are hundreds of ways to implement, and the reality is you need to understand what the constraint is in your business. What's taking time? What are you not doing good at? And then the better the feedback loop is. So with that proposal example, not only do we determine what a good proposal looks like with examples, but as we get deals closed, we actually reflag those so the proposals get better and better based on actual conversions. And so that's the magic of these. Instead of building an AI workflow, we're building an agentic workflow that's actually learning and being educated throughout the system. Now, before we actually really jump into tools, I just want to talk through the main ones that I'm currently using. So Claude is probably the most popular right now, and it's really good at code. It's really good at copywriting. It's probably the best at both. But in a really close second, I really love using Manus. And I'd say if you're going to start in one place, pick one tool. Currently, I would pick Manus. Claude is adding most of the features that Manus has really quickly. So one of the ones that I really like is you can deploy entire workflows like this, and Claude will, or Manus will actually do the research for you. It'll build out a dashboard. It'll build out the UI. It'll host it on a server. And I do believe Claude will catch up with all of that in honestly the next few weeks. So this tools, again, don't matter as much as understanding what you can do. And I'll show you an example of what I built I used actually Claude and Manus to build this tool, but you can do it really simply. Now, on the back end, you no longer really need N8N, Zapier, or Make, at least not nearly as much. And the thing is, you can connect to these tools through what's currently called MCP, but there's going to be a future way that's going to be a lot easier. And all that means is you log in when you're on Manus, you will basically log in, and I'll show you exactly what this looks like. You'll log into Zapier, and Zapier is a workflow automation, and it'll basically build it for you. And then you can just double check it, test it, and hit run. And that way you don't need any code. You don't really need understanding. You just need to understand what the workflow was, what the actual process was, which was that SOP. And then finally, you want to connect it to as much of your data as possible. So using a CRM like Go High Level. Now, I do have affiliate links and templates to all the tools down below. Some of the affiliate links I don't really get paid for, like Manus. It's 500 free credits currently. So that's literally nothing, but they are the tools that I'm actually using. So I want to show you a quick example of what it looks like in Manus. So this is a tool that I've been building, and basically it's an AI research tool that looks at YouTube content for me. And so this is a full dashboard. And the reason why I like Manus is, you can't see this, I'll pull it up in a second, but this was all built inside of Manus. Now, there is a lot of logic and structure that goes into this, and this did take a few weeks to implement, but I did it all through back and forth conversations. And the reason why it took a few weeks is that this isn't one simple workflow. This is an agentic tool that understands and learns as I film, as I create content. It's doing research, it's looking for opportunities, it's looking at search volume. So I integrated a whole bunch of different structures into here. Now, if you want the beta, it's down below. It is a paid tool, and I'm only accepting a few people, so there's probably a waiting list, but that'll be down below. But again, this walks you through everything. It has the strategy and the tools. And the goal here is not to sell you this tool. The goal is to show you what's possible. And so this is a fully usable database, and it's not just, and it just does so many things that you couldn't really build in N8N, you couldn't build in Zapier. And I built all of this again in Manus, just with normal conversation, asking it to change things, edit things. And one of the key things that we do here is what I mentioned is connect tools. So one of the key tools that you need for actually building these agentic workflows is obviously AI, but you also need a database. The database is where you store the structure. So in the database, in that proposal example, it stores the text to the proposal, and then it connects to our CRM, and then it determines if that turned into a sale. If that turns into a sale, it then flags it as a top proposal. Now, those top proposals are used in generating new proposals. And so it sounds complicated, but it's not. You just want to understand the system and the feedback loop that's so critical to make this, instead of an AI workflow, into an agentic workflow. Now, Supabase is probably one of the easiest and simplest to use. And again, what I mentioned is you're basically going to come in here and connect a new tool, and you can just look for any tool you want. So right now, let's see, Zapier is one I mentioned. You just click here and you would log in like normal. Sometimes you have to grab a API key, but it tells you exactly how to do that. And then if you get stuck, take a screenshot and just put it back in the chat and ask. Now, every time you add a new tool, it makes the conversation more expensive. So you only want to give it access to tools that it actually needs. And then you can always ask it. If you don't know what tool it needs, you can say, hey, here's the SOP. How do we make sure that we work in a feedback loop? That's, again, one of the key things, is working in this feedback loop and understanding. And then you really, with the tools, you're going to stop needing N8N. You're going to stop needing basically all the background tools because they're just going to do it for you in a server, which is basically just a remote computer or on your own computers. And that's why I like Manus right now, but I do know that tool is coming out for Claude. So that's exactly what it looks like. Now, again, one more time, currently Claude is probably the most powerful, but also it's more of a developer tool. So if you want to just get started, I would personally start with Manus. And then as you graduate and you learn things like the database, the front end, the back end, the UI, you can start using other tools to become more advanced if that's what you're interested in. Or if you just want to solve a problem and build AI into your work, Manus is probably the easiest because you can schedule and do a whole bunch in there. Now, I don't want to do a whole tutorial on Manus or any of these tools, but if you are interested, comment the tool down below that you want a tutorial on, and I'll make a video specifically for you. Now, I've already mentioned this, but our full system is basically we're going to have that input, which I called in order, focused on more customer service or product, but we're going to have some sort of input, which also for AI agents could be a trigger, which would be maybe a client filled out an onboarding form, and that triggers our automation. And then the automation is going to do work. So they might process that onboarding form and they're going to do research on the company. They're going to Google the company. They're going to Google the lead, and they're going to build out a strategy plan. And then they're going to deliver that probably to the account executive, who is then going to be the human in the loop, and he's going to give feedback and he's going to modify and he's going to change it. So we have that delivery, which is an email to the account executive. They'll give their feedback, they'll modify it, and then they'll deliver it to the client on a white glove service. So that's that kind of whole thing where you have, again, you have your input, you have the work being done, the delivery, and then the key piece here to make it more agentic is the feedback. Now, if you have an agency model or a service-based business, depending on your cost points, you don't want to build everything with AI. A lot of my businesses are very white glove, relationship based. So we want to figure out where everyone belongs in the system. So obviously the founders should be on strategic decisions. They should really focus on how do we make our business better, and the 4 levered criteria of growing revenue, growing lifetime value, reducing risk, or recapturing time, not only for them, but their team, building in freedom and lifestyle. Then the team is really focused on client relationships and that white glove service to make sure that they have real judgment, you have human in the loop, and we're making our systems better as we go. Then the last piece of it is really that AI. That AI is doing all the repetitive work. So if every time I need to work with a client, I have to go do deep research on Google on that client, and then I have to go do deep research on the company, and then I do deep research on the product, you can use AI to give you summaries, executive summaries, full reports of that. So then the account executive can just read through that. And even better, it can jump in, build out the entire strategy. And then the account executive uses their knowledge. So it's not just AI. And then as you build in your data set, it becomes your own strategy, your own ideas, because we're storing all of these concepts and we're actually tracking where clients are having success, and it's getting better and better. Now, key things to understand is if you're building a system and it's not making something better in your business, you probably didn't go after the right constraint in the first place. So really understanding the constraint and the system piece of it is so critical. Now, when we're looking at AI agents, how do we know if we're actually getting a return on investment, if it's actually making our business better? It's, again, really focused on the levers that I mentioned before. It's at the end of the day, it's really 3 KPIs. It's money, time, and risk. Are we increasing money in the business? Are we decreasing the time that it takes to execute something so we can free up our resources for other things? And then are we reducing risk in the business? Now, if we're not doing those, we really need to figure out how to go back and design something that's actually going after our true constraints that isn't too expensive to implement. Now, the whole goal here is really to implement a system that scales without you. So we want to find our constraint. We want to make sure that we're answering the 4 kind of criteria if it's actually a constraint. We want to map out the success loop or the system. We want to document it, and then we want to layer in AI. If we can put that on repeat and start solving problems in our business and start solving real business pain points, we're going to have a successful system and a successful business. If you like content like this and you want to learn more about implementing AI or systems in your business, check out the Founder Systems AI course and community down below. And I have all of my templates down below for free as well, including one specifically on building AI agents. It walks you through an entire step workflow that allows you to answer your questions. So that way, when you upload that to Claude or Manus and say, help me plan an AI agent, it will know most of the key things, like what tools, what softwares, what definitions, what formulas. So you can grab that down below for free, and make sure to subscribe to get more content like this.